Welcome back to episode 3 of Lojban Is Too Easy. In the first lesson, we learned how to separate sentences with E. E, E, E. In the second lesson, we learned how to tag stuff saying we're happy about it with we. E, we. E, we. In this lesson, we're going to learn our first verb. Our first verb is the word for sheep, lanme. Why is the word for sheep a verb? Because everything's a verb, which is, again, it's only going to be confusing because you're like, wait, there's only verbs? How do I say anything if everything is a verb? Okay, in short, the answer to that question is you will say things with verbs because that is all there is. And it's very simple. It's so simple that there's very few things, and we will have gotten through all of the things and all of the grammar surprisingly quickly, even if we go really slow. But while we're learning our first verb, lanme, sheep, I wanted to emphasize some things about the pronunciation. For English speakers especially, this E at the end of the word might be difficult because it needs to be very distinct from lanme, which is a nonsense word. It won't actually confuse anyone, and English has none of this careful lack of this ambiguity, and everyone figures out everything. So, don't, worry about it like people will actually be confused, but, that's what we're doing here in Lojban, is making sure stuff is unambiguous. So, technically, you could confuse lanme with an a at the end with this compound word made of lan and may, which said lan plus may makes a different word, lanme, which it's kind of a nonsense word that means sheep many, like a sheep number of. So you could make that mean something if you want, but it doesn't really, and no one's going to get confused. But just because, alright, the A in lanme is not an a, it's not lanme, it's lanme, and the E at the end, this was really hard for me, that's why I'm emphasizing it, is it took me a long time to get this right. The E at the end, there's no A, it's a. So if you're saying something with an E at the end, you're gonna want you want to sound like you really want to sound like someone who's like what's that? What about this? And if you really want to emphasize that I at the end, if something is a, you want to really emphasize the I at the end. And so it should sound like the fawns or something, like a. It's either a or a. Not like English, sort of just mostly is sort of vaguely in between those. Okay, here are some lanme, so we can use our new word, a verb. Here, I will use it. Lanme. That is it. That is a sentence talking about these sheep. The sentence is sheep. E. Lanme. Alright. You're speaking Lojban. You can speak Lojban. You do speak Lojban. And so far in Lojban, what you can say is being happy about things with we. And you can make sentences using E. You can make empty sentences like E. And you can make a sentence where you put a verb in it, like this. E. Lanme. E. Lanme. So those are sentences that have in them sheep. That it's a good sentence in Lojban. It's not like a baby sentence, or you need to learn a bunch more Lojban before it counts sort of sentence. It's you did it. Ilanme. 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 We. And then the we tags the lanme, saying that I am happy about sheep. Lanme, we, sheep, and I'm happy about it. And then you say E, to get another sentence where you could also say about a sheep and say that you're happy about that one. I lanme oui. I lanme oui. If the we comes right after the lanme, then it's saying I'm happy about the sheepiness, because I'm tagging or I'm attaching to the verb sheep, which means it's a verb. Everything's a verb, and lanme is a verb that means to be a sheep. Lots of things that you wouldn't think would be verbs are verbs in Lojban, which is a little confusing, but it was more confusing when we were like, so we're not going to call them verbs, and we'll think of a different word to call them, because I mean they're just verbs. They're just very weird verbs. This first verb is a verb that means sheep. Lanme. Lanme oui. And then if you put the we right after the I oui. Lanme. Then the we, because it attaches to the E, it sticks onto the E and affects that. So that means that it affects the whole sentence. If it attaches to the E at the beginning of it, then it goes to the whole sentence. I mean, in this case, there's only one thing in the sentence, sheep, lanme. So there's not much difference between attaching to the verb sheep, lanme, oui, and attaching to the whole sentence, oui, lanme, which attaches it to the whole sentence, all of which is sheep. So I mean it doesn't mean something different in that case, but just getting you, I'm just getting you used to the idea that we, it's a thing that the grammar is that we goes and sticks to the thing before it. You can have more than one we, and they all go together as a group, and then they go to the thing before them. So, I lanme oui. So, as well as, so you have to make sure to be distinct from the word lanme, which is a different word than the word lanme. Lanme versus lanme. Lanme. But also, if you think about it too much, now again, nobody's actually getting confused. No one here's confused. No one was like, oh no, I'm so confused where the sentences are. But this is just an experiment in trying to, where there is this sort of ambiguity. There is this way that language is basically complex in a way that Lojban isn't and is basically simple. So let's try it out. Let's try out being simple in this way. And then what happens? And what happens is they get pretty simple. It's a really simple, easy language, this Lojban. Seeing as the whole thing we were doing was, we weren't like taking language and adding complexities to it. Mostly, the things that we added are tools for making things starkly simple. Like E is a word that doesn't exist in English, but it's so simple. You put E between sentences is literally all there is to it. And it's just, it creates no question at all about where the sentences are. I lanme oui. I lanme oui. So there's just no worries at all. There's no question at all. Except you do have to pronounce things correctly for there to be no question at all. You have to make it clear whether you're saying lanme or lanme. And if you think about that, then E is sort of like that I at the end of lanme. And lanme is so if you're saying sentences in a row like I lanme, if you just ran it together and didn't have, this is what the period is, that might be it might be you might be confused by, we use this different quotations. We just think that looks cool. And what is this period at the beginning of these words? Just these words have periods at the beginning. There's no period at the beginning of lanme. These periods at the beginning of the words are about, if we're going to say, suppose we're saying lanme, ilanme, and spelling out the sentences. Lanme, lanme, lanme. All right. If we don't make sure there's a pause here, then we say lanme, ilanme, lanme, 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 lanme. Then without there being a pause, you can't tell the difference between lanme I and lanme. Lanme I, lanme. Lanme I, lanme. So that's why that's what the period means. It doesn't make a sound, it makes another sound. It's like the pause that you never think about in uh-oh. So you don't need to think about it that much. You never think about making a pause in uh-oh. But there's also a pause in lanme I. Lanme I, lanme I, lanme. So that's the hard part. Getting the pronunciation right can be hard, and with any language the hard part is that there are just a zillion words for all different stuff. That's the hard part about learning any language. But in Lojban, all of the words about all this stuff are all verbs. All of the content words are all verbs. So now we learned our first verb, and all we have to do is learn all the other verbs, basically, and just like a few other grammar rules. You'll be shocked how few other grammar rules we need to learn to be speaking Lojban. Okay, so leave a comment or talk somewhere in response to this, or just think to yourself about your happiness about sheep. Now that's what you could describe. We'll get to more things soon enough, but for now you can speak Lojban. But all you can talk about is how happy you are about sheep. I, lanme, oui, I, lanme, oui.